It was the moment the crown stopped being polite. A royal guard, a routine inspection, the car trunk of Queen Camilla's son, and inside, the secret that has kept the monarchy silent for 20 years. Prince William saw the contents and went from prince to prosecutor. The diplomatic truce shattered. His face, usually the image of calm duty, was absolute fury. Witnesses say he was shaking. What was in that box? Diana's lost records, financial evidence of a long-term plot. The names of those in Camilla's family who were allegedly exploiting the crown for profit. This was not a private spat. This was treason against his mother's legacy. This is the story of how William went nuclear. The royal family is facing a crisis that pits Charles against his own heir, and the consequences will be immediate. You are about to witness the moment the Prince of Wales declared war on the past, demanding justice that will leave the monarchy shaken to its foundations. We begin on a quiet, unremarkable Tuesday at the back entrance of Clarence House, one of the more private residences used by the senior royals. The man in the spotlight is Tom Parker Bowles, the successful food writer and stepson to King Charles III. Tom, along with his sister Laura Lopes, has always occupied a complicated, liminal space within the royal infrastructure. They are of the royal family, but they are not royal. They are guests in a gilded cage. For years, they have walked the finest line in the world, maintaining proximity to the crown without ever claiming the official weight of the crown. This delicate balancing act, however, was about to be obliterated by a single, unexpected event. On this particular day, Tom was reportedly scheduled for a private luncheon with his mother, Queen Camilla, and King Charles III, a routine visit. But at the security gates, the point of no return for anyone entering the inner sanctum, the routine was shattered. Every royal residence operates under a state of permanent high alert. The security protocol is not just about keeping intruders out, it is about keeping secrets in. Every vehicle, every person, every delivery must pass through a meticulous check, performed by some of the most highly trained personnel in the world, the royal guards and palace security. These individuals are loyal to the crown, loyal to the protocol, and loyal to the king's safety above all else. Normally, the check is swift. An electronic scan, a flash of ID, a wave through. But on this day, fate intervened in the form of a young, highly diligent sergeant. The atmosphere was calm, but the guard was on high alert due to a general threat assessment issued that morning. Nothing specific, but enough to warrant increased vigilance. We are told, through sources close to the palace security detail, that the guard flagged Tom's vehicle for a standard, random, physical search, a routine inspection that happens perhaps 1 in 100 times. A search that was about to uncover something no one, least of all the Queen's son, ever expected to see exposed. It was a statistical probability that slammed head-on into an emotional certainty. The guard, professional and unflinching, approached the vehicle and asked Tom to open the trunk. Tom, accustomed to the protocol, but perhaps slightly annoyed by the delay, reportedly complied with an easy indifference. He believed his private life was safe. He was wrong. The single act of opening a car trunk was about to unseal a years-long secret and ignite the most brutal internal conflict the House of Windsor has seen in a generation. As the trunk lid slowly rose, a mechanical, indifferent hiss that betrayed the catastrophic events unfolding, the air itself seemed to grow heavy. The guard didn't initially see what the protocols are designed to detect. No contraband, no unauthorized personnel, no direct threat of violence. The discovery was, in its first appearance, a plain, weathered wooden box, slightly dusty, tucked beneath a simple woolen blanket used to protect goods from scratching. It was the kind of innocuous item that would usually be waved through without a second glance. But what caught the guard's eye wasn't the box itself, but the faint, almost invisible inscription carved on its surface. It was a detail only a person steeped in royal history or a person trained to look for the symbolic would recognize. It was a small, ornate design, a simple, delicate letter D, intertwined with a tiny, stylized rose emblem. A motif that to any seasoned palace staffer, security official, or royal correspondent could belong to one and one only: Diana, Princess of Wales. The discovery of an item connected to the late Diana, Princess of Wales, in the private vehicle of Queen Camilla's son immediately elevated the situation from routine security check to a full-blown royal crisis. It was a jarring, impossible contradiction. The son of the woman whose presence overshadowed Diana's life was carrying a locked, private container bearing her most personal cipher. This wasn't just old baggage. This felt like a relic, a piece of a past that should have been sealed and forgotten forever. The guard, reportedly pale and adhering strictly to training, knew the rules were absolute. Protocol dictated that any item of historical, private, or personal significance found under such suspicious or unusual circumstances must be immediately seized and delivered to the highest authority. The potential for embarrassment, for political maneuvering, or even for extortion was too high to ignore. The security officer formally informed Tom Parker Bowles of the seizure. What happened next only intensified the crisis. Tom, whose earlier annoyance had now shifted to palpable distress, reportedly lurched forward, protesting the seizure with a fervor that was both desperate and revealing. He insisted it was his private property, an old gift, an innocent family heirloom, anything to avoid its removal. His frantic protest did little more than amplify the guard's suspicions, cementing the item's highly sensitive nature. Why would the son of the Queen Consort be carrying a secret box clearly linked to the late Diana, Princess of Wales? And why was he trying so desperately to prevent its inspection by the Crown's own security apparatus? His actions were a confession of its importance. The scene escalated rapidly, but silently. No shouts, just strained whispers between the guard, Tom, and a supervising officer who had quickly arrived. The decision was a tactical one, bypassing the king to avoid any accusations of bias or preemption. This box pertained directly to the memory and the unfinished business of William's mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, making the Prince of Wales the immediate and most crucial stakeholder. He was the only person whose authority was absolute on this matter, the only one who could truly act as the executor of Diana's legacy. William was reportedly in a focused meeting with his key advisors and the Earthshot Prize team, discussing strategy for the following year. It was a meeting about the future, about sustainability, about his duty to the planet. But the world outside the monarchy was about to collide violently with his private past. Aides interrupted the meeting with a gravity that could not be ignored. The moment the wooden box, now sealed inside a palace-issued evidence bag, was placed on William's vast, antique desk, the atmosphere in the room changed from professional to deeply, chillingly personal. The mere sight of that familiar D emblem, even glimpsed through the plastic, was enough to silence the room. It was a phantom from the past made real. William, known for his masterful public composure, is intensely protective of his mother's memory.
He has spent years, alongside his wife Catherine, the Princess of Wales, cultivating an image of stoic stability, learning to navigate his complicated relationship with Camilla, always with the painful shadow of Diana looming over the arrangement. It was a burden he carried for the good of the crown. But as William reportedly stared at that familiar, delicate cipher, all that hard-won diplomacy melted away. Sources close to the prince suggest William dismissed his advisors immediately. He demanded to know the circumstances of the box's discovery. When the senior officer recounted the story, the routine stop, the car trunk, the blanket, and Tom Parker Bowles's frantic, almost violent protest, William's face, usually a benign mask of control, reportedly hardened. This wasn't just a historical artifact carelessly misplaced. This was a deliberate concealment. This was a direct, palpable threat. This was a betrayal. The air was thick with unspoken questions. Why did Tom have it? What was so important that he fought the guard to keep it hidden? And most critically, what secrets connected the queen consort side of the family to the deepest, most painful memories of the Prince of Wales? The narrative was no longer about a harmless stepson. It was about an intruder, an antagonist, holding the key to a royal vulnerability. The stage was set for a confrontation that would rock the foundations of the monarchy itself. The silence that followed the guard's report was the heaviest sound in Kensington Palace that afternoon. William, the future king, stood alone, facing a small wooden box, a box that represented everything he had worked for decades to overcome. The political, the personal, the pain of the past, it was all concentrated in that one small space. He needed no further confirmation. The mere presence of the item in that place with that man was enough. But for William, a man of duty, proof was everything. With a chilling calm that betrayed the volcano boiling beneath the surface, William allegedly took a small silver letter opener, a gift perhaps from his own father, and used it to force the lock on the wooden container. The slight metallic crack of the lock and the grinding of wood signaled not just the opening of a container, but the brutal tearing open of old, barely healed wounds. And then he saw it. It was not a single harmless keepsake. It was a carefully curated, damning archive. The contents lay revealed in the artificial light of the palace office, Diana's private correspondence, highly sensitive memos regarding the intricate details of the succession plans following the eventual death of Queen Elizabeth II, and most damningly, a series of detailed financial records. These records, dated back to the years immediately preceding and following Charles and Camilla's wedding, appeared to document a sophisticated, long-term scheme. They allegedly implicated members of Camilla's own family in the unauthorized transfer or exploitation of funds originally earmarked for a specific children's charity, a charity that Diana herself had championed. It was a meticulous, brutal cross-section of 3 generations of royal history: the ghost of Diana, the financial greed of Camilla's lineage, and the future of William's reign. It was at this moment, seeing the hard, cold evidence of a conspiracy that linked the past to the present, Diana's memory to Camilla's ambition, and his own destiny to his stepfamily's potential treachery, that Prince William truly went nuclear. The phrase "went nuclear" implies an internal atomic detonation. This was not a public tantrum. It was the heir to the throne reaching the absolute end of his tolerance. The fury was cold, hard, and terrifyingly focused. All the years of public silence, the forced smiles, the attempts at reconciliation with his stepmother, the quiet efforts to protect his children from the bitterness of his past, all of it exploded in a blinding flash of realization. He reportedly stood, rigid and unforgiving, the silver letter opener still in his hand. Sources describe the shift as total. The professional prince vanished, replaced by a ruthless avenger, the furious son of Diana. The personal pain was now a constitutional matter. He delivered a single, chilling command to his senior staff. His voice, though low, carried the weight of the crown. "Get me the king, immediately, and get the legal team. I want every single aspect of this investigated. We are done with silence. We are done with compromise." The consequence of this single explosive discovery is only just beginning to unfold. The quiet life Tom Parker Bowles had built is over. The carefully managed truce between the Wales family and the Queen consort is shattered. King Charles is now facing a crisis that pits his wife against his heir, a crisis of his own making. The monarchy is indeed shaken, and the story of what William did next, the retribution, the banishment, the confrontation, is a story that redefines the future of the crown. The gloves are off. But what exactly was the smoking gun? When William demanded a full breakdown, his legal team reportedly spent the night dissecting the contents of the stolen box, and what they uncovered was, according to sources, a plot of breathtaking audacity, extending far beyond simple family squabbling. The financial records were not vague. They were highly specific, detailing a complex web of transactions involving a company linked to a distant relative of Camilla's first husband, Andrew Parker Bowles, and a prominent children's charity known to be deeply important to the late Princess Diana. The alleged scheme was simple: diverting small streams of charitable income through a network of opaque offshore entities before they were ultimately redirected to personal accounts. Accounts reportedly linked to individuals within Camilla's extended family circle. This wasn't just theft, this was sacrilege. It wasn't money taken from the royal purse, it was money taken from Diana's causes, exploited using the very name and prestige of the royal family. The documents allegedly spanned a decade, revealing a pattern of opportunism that had gone undetected because no one in the palace hierarchy dared to look too closely at the private affairs of the queen consort's kin. The assumption was that they were respectable, discreet. William's discovery suggested otherwise. For William, this moved the conflict from the realm of emotional resentment to constitutional necessity. He could forgive personal slights. He could not forgive the corruption of the crown's charitable mission, especially when tied to his mother's memory. The discovery proved that the interruption of Camilla's life had brought with it not just awkward family dinners, but genuine, systematic exploitation. The question wasn't if William would act, but how publicly and how brutally he would cut out this cancerous presence. He now had the unassailable proof he needed to justify a radical, unprecedented purge. The documents were allegedly meticulously organized, too organized perhaps, suggesting they were kept as a lever, a piece of blackmail or insurance, rather than evidence meant to be destroyed. This fact alone fueled William's rage. The idea that his stepbrother could be so cynically calculating, keeping the physical record of such a gross betrayal ready to use at a moment's notice. The focus of the financial trail led directly to a series of grants and donations related to the arts and hospitality sectors, fields in which Tom Parker Bowles has a professional presence. It suggested a terrifying convergence of personal ambition and royal access. Was this whole scheme orchestrated by Tom himself, or was he merely the custodian of the damning evidence, protecting a larger plot orchestrated by his family?
The focus of the financial trail led directly to a series of grants and donations related to the arts and hospitality sectors, fields in which Tom Parker Bowles has a professional presence. It suggested a terrifying convergence of personal ambition and royal access. Was this whole scheme orchestrated by Tom himself? Or was he merely the custodian of the damning evidence, protecting a larger plot orchestrated by his family? The documents presented the skeleton of a massive deception, and William was now determined to find the flesh and blood responsible. The legal team reportedly confirmed that while the amounts were relatively small in the grand scheme of the Crown's finances, the principle was fatal. The misuse of a charity directly tied to the memory of the universally beloved Princess Diana was an offense that the new modern monarchy could not and should not tolerate. It was the ethical rot that could destroy the public trust King Charles was desperate to secure. If the financial documents were the legal ammunition, the personal items were the emotional grenade. The box contained several sealed envelopes, yellowed with age, bearing Diana's elegant handwriting. These were reportedly private letters written to a close confidant in the final years of her life, letters long presumed destroyed or lost in the chaotic aftermath of her death. But these were not just tragic love letters. They were allegedly a collection of her most candid, unvarnished thoughts on the complexities of the royal machinery, her feelings about the attempts to marginalize her charitable work, and, most damningly for the current situation, specific, highly private references to the very financial manipulations that William's team had just uncovered. Diana, sources claimed the letters implied, had sensed the rot. She had documented her suspicions, detailing the involvement of certain associates who were closely connected to the Parker Bowles social sphere. For William, reading his mother's own words, her quiet warnings, her sense of being isolated and ignored, was like receiving a message from beyond the grave. It provided a spiritual mandate for his coming actions. The emotional impact was overwhelming. The letters reportedly spoke of loneliness, of suspicion, and of a deep-seated fear that her charitable efforts were being deliberately undermined from within the palace walls. The letters reportedly offered William a timeline, a pattern, and a deep, visceral understanding of the forces that had been arrayed against his mother. It confirmed his worst fears, that the intrusion of Camilla's life had been destructive not just to Diana, but to the integrity of the institution Diana had fought to save. The physical presence of these documents in Tom Parker Bowles' possession suggested two terrifying possibilities. Either Tom was involved in the original act of concealment, or he was holding them as a form of insurance, a secret weapon against William, the heir. The very thought that his stepbrother held his mother's deepest fears as a tool for blackmail was what pushed William past the brink. The emotional weight of holding his mother's final private thoughts, intertwined with the evidence of his stepfamily's alleged treachery, turned William's cold fury into righteous rage. This was the moment the stoic prince truly became Diana's son, ready to defend her honor by purifying the institution. The documents laid bare the decades of veiled conflict, forcing William to confront the ugly truth that the past was still actively poisoning the present. To understand the ferocity of William's nuclear reaction, we must understand the long, troubled history between the heir and Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles. Their relationship was never one of true step-siblings. It was a decades-long exercise in forced proximity and emotional distance. From the beginning, the relationship was fraught. While William and Harry initially maintained a polite truce with Tom and Laura, this was strictly at the behest of their father, Charles. Tom, being slightly older and acutely aware of the social dynamics, was often perceived by the young princes as a living symbol of their parents' painful divorce. He was the perpetual reminder of the woman who destroyed their parents' marriage. While the boys were rarely openly hostile, a palpable tension defined their interactions. Tom Parker Bowles, a celebrity foodie and socialite, operates in a world of high society luxury and media access, the very world the princes,
especially William, had been trained to view with caution. William's life was defined by the strict demands of the royal firm. Tom's was defined by pleasure and privilege derived from his mother's elevated status. This was the core of the class and duty divide. There were whispers over the years of small, petty snubs. Tom allegedly using royal connections to secure lucrative deals. William allegedly freezing Tom out of certain key palace events. But it was the sense of entitlement that drove William's resentment. Tom was benefiting from a crown he did not earn, a life he did not serve. And now, with the evidence from the trunk, William saw that entitlement cross a far more dangerous line: criminal exploitation and the desecration of his mother's memory. The discovery was not merely an event. It was the final validation of every suspicion William had harbored for 20 years. It confirmed that the man he was forced to call his stepbrother was, allegedly, a silent antagonist, using his proximity to the throne for personal gain while holding secrets that threatened to destabilize the very family structure William was sworn to protect. The past had reached out of the grave and presented the future king with a weapon, and William intended to use it. The only way to finally close the chapter on the painful ghost of the past was through this brutal, public severing. The command William issued, "Get me the king, immediately. We are done with silence," sent a shockwave through the palace communication system. King Charles III was reportedly at Highgrove, attending to documents, anticipating a quiet evening. That peace was violently shattered by a call from his son's private line. The conversation that followed, pieced together from staff and senior royal aides, was reportedly unlike any father-son exchange in the recent history of the monarchy. It was not a plea, it was a formal declaration of war. William did not mince words. He bypassed the usual pleasantries and delivered the facts cold and hard. The Royal Guard's discovery, the identification of the items linked to Diana, the financial evidence implicating Camilla's family. He presented Charles not with a suggestion, but with an ultimatum. Either the king took immediate, decisive, and irreversible action against Tom Parker Bowles and anyone connected to the scheme, or William would feel compelled to take the matter to external authorities, creating a constitutional crisis that would eclipse even the abdication. Charles, already navigating the fragility of his early reign and aware of the political cost of scandal, was reportedly left stunned and heartbroken. The crisis pitted his two deepest loyalties: his duty to the crown, embodied by his heir, and his devotion to his wife, Camilla. For Charles, this was the ultimate moment of reckoning, a mirror reflecting the painful choices he had made decades earlier. He was faced with the same choice: Diana's legacy or Camilla's life. The king's initial reaction was denial, followed by a frantic attempt to mediate, to manage the crisis internally. But William was resolute. He was no longer the conflicted prince. He was the future king exercising his authority. He had the proof, the righteousness, and the fierce loyalty of his mother's ghost on his side. He was done waiting. He was demanding justice. And the only path to peace lay through the complete and public sacrifice of Camilla's connection to her past life. The monarchy was indeed shaken, because Prince William was finally done being silent. The consequences would be felt not just in the palace, but throughout the entire Commonwealth.